We are learning about the three components of color right now in class to help us learn about color, help us learn how to manipulate color in preparation for creating paintings together. We have so far covered hue, which is the color, and we have changed the color by creating a color wheel where we learned how to mix two colors together to create a range of new colors. We have also created a value scale, which is where we changed a color's value. We added water to make the color lighter, and we added black to make the color darker. And now we are on the final component of color, which is intensity. The intensity of a color is the brightness or the dullness of that color. So if we think about intensity and even just think about the color orange, for instance, we want to think about the most intense possible orange is a fluorescent orange. A regular orange is just like an orange color crayon, and a dull or less intense orange would be the orange that is on the surface of a pumpkin, for instance. So if we look just specifically at intensity, we can see that we change intensity by mixing a color with its complementary color. Now, complementary colors are found across the color wheel from each other. So if we look at this color wheel and we look at this intensity scale that's here between blue or yellow and purple, we see that the color yellow and the color purple are directly across the color wheel from one another. That means that they are complementary colors. They're as far apart as they can possibly get on the color wheel. So we have three common complementary color pairs. We have yellow and purple, we have red and green, and we have orange and blue. Eventually, these complementary colors do mix with each other to create a neutral. They will create a gray, a black, a brown. It's why you don't need to purchase those colors of paint. You can create a range of those colors of paint by understanding complementary colors. Also, if you remember back to last week when we created value and we were adding black to make a color darker, if you recall, I mentioned that yellow was a bad color to do for a value scale because if you add black to yellow, you just end up with this icky kind of pea soup green. Well, understanding complementary colors and intensity gives us a different way to dull or darken a color. So if we look here at this, we call this an intensity scale, we can see that if we take yellow and add a tiny bit of purple, each time we make darker versions of yellow or duller versions of yellow, but they are still yellow. They don't change color. So most of the time when we're making a painting, adding a color's complementary color becomes the best way to make that color darker because black pigment does have a lot of blue in it, and so we do end up with a lot of color shift. So I am going to have you create a series of three intensity scales today so that you can see all of the neutralized colors that you can create. So if we look at our palette, I'm going to look at our palette here for a minute, and we're going to talk about the complementary color pairs. So I'm going to put this piece of paper next to my palette. And if we talk about the combination of red and green, in the palette we have here, this color is green. And so we can use that green as the green in our complementary pair. And for this activity, we are going to use this color, the cool red, as red. So red and green, you're going to use the green in your palette and the cool red. When we do, so this is one combination that you're going to have to use. The second combination that you're going to have to use is blue and orange. And you can use either blue, right? We have two blues, and it doesn't matter to me which one you use. So use either blue. And for orange, instead of you having to create an orange, I'm going to go ahead and have you use the red that looks kind of orangish. So you're gonna use the warm red. For the yellow and purple combination, for yellow, you can use either of the yellows in your palette. So either is fine. Whichever one you decide to try. And for the purple, you're going to have to make a purple. Okay, and the recipe for purple is the cool red and the cool blue. Okay, so cool red plus cool blue is going to give us the purple color. Okay, and remember in the palette they go cool, warm, cool, warm, cool, warm. So it's always the bottom of the color that's the cool one. So cool red is this one and cool blue is this one, and that's going to give you your purple. So these are the color combinations you're going to use for complementary colors. And what you're going to do, because we're going to do all three, is you're going to find a spot on your paper. I'm going to go ahead and switch to a new sheet. It doesn't matter. You can add it underneath the value scales if you want to. And you're going to need 9 shapes in each row. It doesn't matter to me what those shapes are, just like before. They can be the same shapes, they can be different shapes, 100% up to you. And you're going to need to use all 3. So we're gonna do a row of 3 of them. The process for this is a lot like making a value scale. The difference is that in the value scale, we started in the center, and for each of these, we're gonna start on an end, and then we have to start over and start on the opposite end. And I'll show you what I mean by that. So I'm gonna start down here, and I'm going to do the yellow and purple. Give myself some clean water. Remember, if you have dirty water, it really changes your colors. So I'm going to start with yellow and purple. I'm going to use the lighter yellow, not for any particular reason, just because I'm gonna decide to use the lighter yellow. So the first thing I'm going to do is add paint out here. So this is my yellow and purple. So here's my first one, yellow. Oh, I forgot to make purple, shoot. So what I'm gonna do now is I have to put paint on these two colors. Remember, making purple is the cool blue and the cool red. And I think I have some purple left over here from making my color wheel. So I'm gonna make kind of a big pile of purple so that I have enough to use. So here, oh, I think I still need a little bit more red in here. There we go. So I'm gonna go ahead and put my purple out here just to test the color. And it definitely is just a clean purple. And now I'm gonna clean my brush off again. And I'm gonna move a little bit more yellow out here. So here's what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna build on this pile, just like when we did the value activity. So here's my clean yellow. I'm gonna try to get as much of that paint off my brush as I can. And I'm just gonna take the tiniest little zip of purple and I'm gonna mix it in. And you will see that I make a darker version of this yellow. I want to be careful not to add too much purple at once because it will get really, really dark. And now I'm just going to go back to my pile of purple, a little bit more yellow, make it a little darker. Oh, it didn't really get darker. A little bit more. There we go. Now it went a little darker. And you need a little bit more yellow or a little bit more purple. I keep seeing a little bit more yellow. And you can see that I am making a brown. And there's part of me that thinks maybe I went too far on that first skip. I'm gonna try to make, yes, a little bit more yellowy kind of color. So I'm gonna go ahead and just put that up here just because you can see this is more yellow than this one. I went just a little too brown too fast. And now what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna start over from the opposite side. I have my purple, I still have my purple left in my pile. And I'm going to take my purple and I'm gonna add just a little bit of yellow to it. And you can see that the purple gets a little darker, a little duller. I'm going to clean my brush off so I don't make a mess of my yellow. Add a little bit more yellow. And if I go too far, like you can see this is barely purple, that's just a sign that I have to add more red and more blue. So you just want to be careful that you don't go too far too fast. If you add too much of the paint in all at once, you end up changing the color too dramatically, and then what happens is that it doesn't go gradual. So I'm gonna step back up, back. And I made this one more purple. And I'm doing this while my paint is wet enough that I'm able to just mix it on the paper. So you can kind of see what happens when I think, oh shoot, I've made a mistake. I don't just leave it, oh shoot, I've made a mistake. I'm fixing it. I recognize that there was a problem and I'm fixing that problem so that I can make sense of the activity that I'm trying to do. Let's see, where are we at now? There we go. Now you can see this is darker. And, oh shoot, I didn't paint this other brown one or yellowy one. So ideally, each of these should be yellow. This one will be brown or gray, which is actually this color here in the center. And each of these will be purple. So I've done a bad job of showing you exactly how this works.